As you walk down Ellicott Street, you might think that this was just another old, beautiful Victorian home, like many others here in Buffalo.
But this house is different, very different, because inside this house, desperation turns to hope, fear turns to courage, and strangers become family. Hello, I'm Jackie Walker.
And I'm Kevin O'Connell. Have you heard the old adage that love makes a house a home? Well, here at 782 Ellicott Street, that saying is very true. We'd like to introduce you this evening to the Kevin Guest House.
This home for the last 20 years has served as home to families going through the most traumatic time of their lives. It's located just across the street from Roswell Park, and families stay here as patients are undergoing treatment at this world-renowned cancer institute.
Tonight, we'd like to share the story of the Kevin Guest House with you. The beginnings, the lives of the people that it touches, the fact that it almost had to close its doors, and how the community stepped in to help.
So thank you for joining us for Kevin Guest House, House of Hope. Years ago, a couple from Sharon, Pennsylvania was here in Buffalo with their son Kevin as he underwent treatment for leukemia at Roswell Park.
Now, the treatment that Kevin was undergoing often required him to make frequent trips to Buffalo for extended periods of time. Now, Kevin's parents, Cyril and Claudia Garvey, always stayed with their son during his weeks of treatment.
The Garveys were fortunate. They could stay at local hotels while they were here in Buffalo, but they were struck by the dozens of other families unable to afford even the most modest of accommodations.
Well, shocked that other families had to live in cars or unsafe lodging, the Garveys dedicated themselves to establishing a safe, comfortable place that patients could stay with their families while they were being treated, regardless of their financial means.
On the day Kevin Garvey lost his battle with leukemia, the Garveys took ownership of the Kevin Guest House. Let's hear their story. 20 years have passed since Claudia and Cyril Garvey lost their second youngest son to leukemia. The years that have passed have enabled them to speak freely about Kevin, his fears, and his transformation into a brave little boy, a boy they nicknamed Heart.
He was called the Heart because we left him one time. We took the family to Niagara Falls, and as we were going out to lunch this day, it wasn't until we got to the restaurant that we were one short. And so I looked around and I said, well, which one? Oh, it's Kevin. So we went back to the motel, and he was livid. He was, his face was just pushed against the window, and he was crying, and he said, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. He thought we had left him, you know. So after that, he was known as Heart. That was his nickname. That was before he got sick.
He was afraid of birds when he was about so high. He didn't want to go outside when they were flying around. And the wonderful thing about his fears was that he always told us about them. He never complained about his illness, and he never seemed to be fearful of anything.
No.
He just said on one or two occasions that he thought his illness was a lot harder on us than it was on him, which is kind of a brave thing for a little guy to say. He was so fearful as a little one, and then so brave as an older one.
Cyril recounts that horrible day that they received Kevin's diagnosis.
And the doctor said, Kevin has leukemia. It is incurable.
He asked you the question first, asked us, do you know what Kevin has?
Yeah. And he said he has leukemia. It is incurable. And he may live 6 months, or he could live a year and a half or 18 months. And he was never sick a day in his life until he came down with leukemia.
The Garveys decided to leave a legacy for Kevin, to provide comfort to other people who were going through what they had been through. They saw firsthand the terrible situation that others were experiencing.
Our first introduction to housing was, I went to one of the motels there and told them that we would be staying in Buffalo periodically for lengths of time, and I wondered what kind of accommodations they had and what sort of a rate they would be able to give me. Well, it was just the usual franchise motel. But there were a lot of people who couldn't afford even that, and we would see them every day when we would bring Kevin over for treatment. Some of them even sleeping in cars. And it was that prompted me to talk to Mrs. Garvey about seeing if we couldn't find some accommodations, you know, that would relieve that.
Well,
So
I
then-
think too, being with a lot of the mothers myself, that I would hear them talk about the places that they were staying, and some of them were very close, but at that time, the area south of the hospital was terrible. The whole section was bad there, and sometimes they were in a home, what do you call them, not a tourist home, but a similar thing. And they were so frightened, they would say, that, you know, the area was bad, and they would sit up most of the night and wait for dawn so they could come over, and they would just stay in the lobby of the hospital and eat their meals. And a lot of them, too, they were without cars, and they were without friends, and they were with very little money.
The Garveys purchased 782 Ellicott in January of 1972.
The house was made available to anyone who was being treated at Roswell, regardless of whether they were in the pediatric section or in the adult section, and regardless of whether they were being treated as outpatients or inpatients.
The Garveys enjoy their role as grandparents, and they're pleased to share their family gallery, which includes many grandchildren who are named after their Uncle Kevin. And they speak often of the house in Buffalo that bears his name.
It was a wonderful place to go to when the day was over, and there were people there that they knew they weren't alone in their problem.
Yeah, I think the
And,
fact that they had other people that were in the same predicament was, in a sense, it was a consolation to them to know that they weren't going through this all by themselves.
By the way, the Garveys are looking forward to their next family reunion. That'll be coming around Easter time. They're looking forward to having their 7 children and 25 grandchildren all together.
Coming up, we'll tell you about some of the challenges that faced the Kevin Guest House, and we'll meet the people who met those challenges. Stay with us. The Kevin Guest House has been through some changes in the last few years. Unfortunately, not all of them for the better.
You know, just like a lot of nonprofit organizations, the Kevin Guest House has felt the economic crunch too. As a matter of fact, it fell into a state of disrepair, so much so that it almost had to close a year ago.
But then the Kevin House got a new executive director. Jen Ann Berger, together with the Kevin House Board of Directors, began the mission of turning the Kevin House around. Now, Jen Ann is proud to give people a tour of the Kevin House, but not long ago, that wasn't the case.
The problems cosmetically that we had with the house was that it was let go. It was neglected, unfortunately. We now have a new energetic board who is looking to fix up and clean up, and that's what we've done.
The famous tour involves showing guests of the Kevin House the kitchen, where families are encouraged to sit and talk about their feelings and problems as they would in their own homes, and the newly remodeled bathrooms that are equipped for a patient's special needs. Throughout the house, a quietness and comfort is maintained to create a feeling of home.
I'm looking for people to come here, understand what we're all about, volunteer their time and their talents. I'd like the community to know more about us, to be able to brag to the fact that we're here in Buffalo serving not only people from maybe just Pennsylvania or the Southern Tier, but from other countries. They come to our front door with a glazed look in their eye, and when they come in the door, and by the time we take them on the famous tour that I'm always kidded about, they have relaxed, and that to me is worth everything.
Carol Ann Reynolds is the residential manager of the Kevin House. Her job is to make certain that all of the residents feel as comfortable as possible under the extreme circumstances in which they arrive.
Quite often we have people that come in and they're understandably distraught. They're kind of overwhelmed about this disease that has invaded their family, and they don't quite know which way to turn. And we have seen time and time again where people will come in and they'll be upset. They don't know where they're going to stay, how are they going to manage, where are they going to eat. And they'll come in, and within maybe 10 or 15 minutes, the calmness of the house, the care and support of the other people that live here sort of invades their person. And you can visibly see them begin to relax and calm down and hear and listen to what we have to offer here at Kevin House.
We could get the community involved to help us bring up our base of money so we can continue to operate, to pay those gas and electric bills. We would all work together to be able to help people who are in the most stressful times of their entire life.
So the Kevin House needed help. But that's what makes our community like no other, the willingness to pitch in and help preserve these special places here in Western New York.
When we come back, we're going to show you what can be done with a Saturday afternoon when you combine some building materials, some paint, some friends, and a little elbow grease. We'll be right back.
We're back now to take a look at one glorious Saturday afternoon.
And the hard work of a lot of people who care.
The refurbishing of the Kevin House actually started a few days earlier. You see, the Ford Motor Company has a program they call General Employment Numbers. Now, this is where laid-off workers are paid by Ford and the UAW to work in various areas of our community that need volunteer help. And the Kevin House needed help. So a crew from Ford helped by using their own vehicles to pick up materials and then bring them to the Kevin House to be installed, like some very badly needed windows. Joseph Lagalbo represents the UAW Local 897.
Our Gen Committee at the Buffalo Stamping Plant decided on going with Kevin Guest House as a needy organization.
Along with their volunteer work, the Ford Motor Company Foundation also donated funds.
And now, let's see what volunteers from Value Home Centers, Ford Motor Company, and Channel 4 can do.
Well, that turned into one fun Saturday.
It was. We got a lot done, too.
Sure did. Well, we've shown you some of the services that go on here at the Kevin House and just some of the volunteers and how their great effort have gone into restoring this.
Now we want to show you the reason for it all. Just one of the lives touched by the Kevin House. Lori Bennick is a quiet 23-year-old. As she receives her daily chemotherapy treatment, she talks about living in the special apartment at the Kevin Guest House.
Everybody's real nice and friendly.
You met a lot of nice people?
Yeah, like every night everybody sits out in where our apartment is. We have chairs out there and everybody sits out there and talks and stuff.
As a 22-year-old, after learning she had leukemia, Lori also learned that she was pregnant. Lori decided to have her baby, and miraculously, she became one of 4 women in the country who have carried a healthy baby while being treated for leukemia. Lori's mom takes a moment to introduce us to her granddaughter.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Stearns, and I'm Lori's mother, and this is her daughter, Cheyenne Nicole. And we're staying here at the Kevin Guest House. They started this apartment about 6 months ago for bone marrow transplant patients, and it's making it real nice so that they can stay close to Roswell so that they can go back and forth to clinic each day and have a home setting.
Other family members of patients at Roswell wanted to share their feelings about Kevin House as well.
I think the Kevin House is just a wonderful facility. It's close, it's convenient, it's clean. I think it's one of Buffalo's best kept secrets.
It's really terrific. The people are friendly and very courteous, and it's really great. And it's a chance to visit my wife. She had her operation here yesterday, and we visit. It's only about a 5-minute walk, and it's really great to be here.
There's a purpose for coming to this house, I think, to make people think, you know, I don't think there's any other better place to go to.
For these family members, Lori, and so many others, Kevin House has been a large part of their treatment. It's given them comfort and hope.
As of now, Lori's doctors have found no new cancerous cells. She and her family look forward to going back to their home in Lakewood, New York, and living a normal life. We'll be back in just a moment.
This is Kevin Garvey, the young man whose courage was the inspiration for Kevin House. We hope you've enjoyed our special this evening. We feel that all the hard work that's gone into making Kevin House possible is really what Buffalo is all about.
Whenever there's a need, volunteers and business people rise to the occasion. Everyone at Channel 4 is very proud to be a part of this project.
We'd like to close tonight with some special thoughts of some very special people about Kevin House. I'm Kevin O'Connor.
And I'm Jackie Walker. Good night.
It's like welcome. It has a very warm atmosphere. The people that come and stay here, they feel like your family.
When I see someone come in here and start forming friendships and getting well, not only in their spirit but in their body, that's what I see for this place.
The people that stay here are just extraordinary. They're overwhelmed by something that I can't even begin to understand. And yet somehow, maybe it's Kevin's spirit.
If the Kevin Guest House were ever to close because there's no longer a need for it, I'd be the happiest guy in the world. But if it were to close because we can't continue to afford to provide this service to the people that are being treated there, I'd feel very badly about that.
The 1992 renovations at the Kevin Guest House were made possible through the generosity of Value Home Centers, Ford Motor Company, and WIVB-TV.